The chair for the Key to Effective chapters, and I'd like to talk to you about the Chapter Excellence Program. It's really made up of two parts. One is the part that you do throughout the year, and it's to try to help you do that job easier and better. And then the second part is recognition of the great job that you did during the year. So it's really a two-part deal. The whole idea is continuous improvement, and we don't want you to focus on the awards. We have too many chapters. We find that come December, they say, hey, we won an award, so let's go see if we did anything this past year to do it. Well, rather than take that approach, we want you to plan, follow your plan, and then the award is just a natural outcome of that activity. But planning, regular and interesting, engaging programs and communications are kind of your bedrock that will make sure that you are successful. There are, one of the big things we're concerned about is chapter consistency, year to year, year after year, sustainability. We have chapters that present awards, they'll make a goal, the next year they don't even submit. And so what we're looking for is to try to make sure that we have a continuity so that the chapter members are getting their full value year after year. So this is what it's going to take. It's going to take those, the strategic planning will help, the president-elect role will help, and the leadership succession planning, continuously recruiting for that is going to help. Your engaging programs, your effective communication, if you don't have that, we've seen it too often in the awards process, it just drives your chapter down if you don't have that. The chapter activities are a great way to identify new, prospective, active members of your chapter that can progress through the leadership. Watch for the people that stay around, that will respond, ask questions, give them a job, let them take the role to start off with. Maybe they can help with some of the logistics for the planning, plan some of the activities, and just build into that role. And then the Circle Awards provide the metrics to help not just at the end of the year, but throughout the year to watch what you're doing. We, as part of this activity, are providing training, which is what we're seeing right now, best practices, which we're going to talk about in a minute. The Circle Award are continually updated based upon your input. This year we had quite a few changes. We have guidelines for planning and execution. We're going to talk to you about that. And then we also have veteran officers who've been through it before who are available through phone calls or email to help you. So the Keys to Effective chapter wiki is where we've tried to kind of put everything. So if I die, you got it. You know, it's there. You don't have to worry about me. It's up and running. So as Barclays pointed out, if you'll just Google INCOSE chapter wiki, it's the first hit. No problem. Eventually we'll move it, but right now you'll find it wherever it is. We have the training. We've got the workbook and templates we're going to talk about, good best practices, and there's just a wealth of information. In fact, this week, I've been adding additional sections. So as people come up and says, hey, I'd like to see that, and we try to find examples and get that on there so you have something to help. This is what the wiki looks like when you go to the website. It doesn't look like exactly like this because I've updated it since then, but it provides, it's real easy to use. Down here are your main links to everything. This is just a history of the pages. But then we've got things that are new, updates, the chapter video course was identified there. We've got just a lot of things, but this is the kind of the starting place. The trainer officer training component, which we're going through now, we have a requirement that all officers go through the training, And we've broken it up on the wiki. What you hear today will be actually in several different packages that you can maybe spread it out if you want to. We also provide just a copy of the slides, so you have the option for somebody that's coming in, accepting an officer or being a replacement for somebody. They can go back, either view the whole thing or just look at the slides. What we recommend is that you do it as a team. The reason is that when you walk through it, you got a lot of conversation. Hey, how does that work? Should we be doing that? Those kind of discussion starters will help a lot in your planning when you go through there. So it covers all these items which you're seeing here today. Now, chapter planning is a big deal, and planning is not optional. Lack of planning, just like at work. If you've got a project and you don't plan, what's going to happen? You're going to overrun, you're going to bust your budget, you're going to have all sorts of problems with your customer. You got to plan. And the same thing, your customer in this case are all the chapter members. And to get them full value, you need to have a good plan to deliver that. So we really recommend that you do it immediately after your election. If you have an election in October, you ought to be doing the training right after that. But no later. We're moving the date up. Currently, this year it was April 15th. We're moving it to March 15th for next year. And don't be exclusive. Invite people to come and take the training, be involved, monitor, audit all your activities. And this is the way of picking up new leadership potential. And then we recommend the chapter planning workbook and template, which we'll talk more about in just a minute. Lack of planning has some adverse problems. These are real life things. These are pictures of things that actually took place. Planning is really important. On the other hand, you can have too much planning. We don't want you in this situation. I know engineers tend to be analytical, but this is kind of overdoing it. Okay, the idea here is to bring together a lot of different things. Your chapter strategic plan, which is right there, has a lot of inputs. We recommend that you look at the INCOSE vision. You consider the handbook that you got as part of your packet this time, which was the system engineering, the larger picture of Vision 2025, the INCOSE mission, the goals, strategic initiatives, but also you've got a chapter SWOT. If you don't know what a strength, weaknesses, opportunity, threat is, well, got to help for you there too. So effective planning starts with the strategic. That's where you get your multi-year idea, and makes your strategic plan, makes your succession planning much, much easier. From that comes your operational planning for the current year. And we used to have separate the membership and the communications, and we recommend now you just put that all in the same thing. Okay, this is the workbook and template. Brand new things came out spring of this year. These are snippets from that. Section 1, or the first thing is not called Section 1, it's called an introduction. And there we talk about why the plan is important, talk about different aspects of it, talk about, in this case, for example, having the chapter member survey done before you do the actual planning, so you have that member input to help guide you what's going to happen in the current year. Keys to effective chapters wiki, of course, and then you've got just a lot of guidelines. We also even tell you how to go about conducting the session. So even tips on that worked out well. Then once you get into Section 1, the format is that you have a section that talks about what the thing is, and then a box that you fill in. So it's a workbook. It's intended for you to work as a team, fill this thing in as you go. So for the strategic planning, you've got the chapter analysis. If you did a SWOT, what were the results of that? The member survey, if you did that, you want to note your primary findings. So we've given it as a workbook. Fill it in as you go along, and your job is knocked down easy. If you haven't been involved in, maybe you haven't had the opportunity to be a lead system engineer or a project engineer. If you haven't, these are things that you would have picked up. Some of this you would have picked up in that job. Some of this stuff you wouldn't normally get unless you are involved more in middle management. But this gives you an opportunity to learn about these, how to go about it. It's a walkthrough you can't miss. I mean, it is a step-by-step, tells you what to do, how to do it, when to do it. So in this case, for strategies, you've got, we give you examples. You may not use them, but we give you lots of examples here of strategies you could consider. You may not use any of them, but whatever you use, you jot them down right here. To even record your ideas for strategies, high-level approaches or hows. How you're going to do. Here we've got an example of something you might want to use, where we have all the months, type of meetings you think you might want for the month, theme, possible presenter, other notes you want to make. What we suggest is this is a living document. You start off, you put this in here, you make your first cut at it and kind of an agile approach. Then you do your more detailed planning for the next quarter. Then when that comes up, you follow for the next quarter and the next quarter. But you have an overall plan that you're continually updating. It's not a one-time lock it up deal. For your events, a lot of times you have problems with events. Well, this is a little idea that you might build off of. This is your event, chapter meeting, type, a date, and then particular details. Where it's going to be, who's going to be the coordinator, and hey, if someone else takes over, how do I get a hold of this guy so I can track him down, not have to look up something else? Just put it in there. Who the presenter is, any secondary topics. Sometimes we recommend that you consider not just a primary presentation at your chapter meeting, but consider maybe having a 5-minute thing at the beginning that introduces them. You might introduce them to a working group. You might have a quick report on an activity that somebody went to, that kind of thing. And then you have your major presentation. So you can really cover a lot more than just one presentation. And this is a way to kind of keep track of that. Then you move to your template. Once you finish your workbook, your template is really what you're going to submit and work from as your actual documented plan. And so again, we've tracked it to the workbook, and now you can just write in whatever you planned. So your chapter objectives, you can list them there. Another example here is your detailed planning sheet. Got it right there. You can fill that out for your next event. Then another whole area is best practices. And we think the workbook is the best practice, but we've collected what chapters have done as a result primarily of submittals for the awards. We go through when we are evaluating, we look at the data, we see something we think is really good, we flag it, and then we try to remember to come back and put that onto the wiki. So there's lots of templates, there's examples. Some of the examples currently are outdated, and we hope to update that as we evolve and get more updated materials. It is a wiki, so if you have one and I missed it, hey, go to the wiki, you can upload it yourself, put it on there. And then we have a lot of sections in the wiki, and we've tried to map that to be right along the same guidelines as what we've got in your criteria for your circle awards, so that it's easy to find things. You're kind of used to looking up the same sort of stuff. The activities are really the lifeblood. That's what really draws a lot of people in, keeps people interested. We've all seen it. You're not always sure, but if you hit a topic that is really popular, you have a great turnout. You advertise a topic and nobody shows up, you know, that wasn't a good one. So you learn from that process. But we're really working on trying to make that job easier for you. We think the meetings are your number one activity. You've got a lot of presentation sources that we've talked about. You've got your working groups, local companies, universities, and you can do remote. North Texas, I remember we had a program chair that was really into knowledge management. So he found somebody and had done a lot of work and written a book that was at the University of Denver. And so he gave a presentation to us from Denver that we used and was very well attended and appreciated. Tutorials are another thing. Find out what your people want and offer that. You've got sources of INCOSE experts, local companies. You might have local university that could help you, or working groups might be able to provide that. And then regional conferences that was mentioned before, of getting together with other chapters and taking advantage of that to provide an activity that has a lot of value that more people can attend because it's closer.
You mentioned INCOSE experts. Is there a resource for those?
No, that's a generic term, not a tag term. But there are a lot within. You have fellows, you've got chairs or core members of working groups. Those are expert in those areas, but they're not flagged or tagged as experts. Okay, communications is really important, and there's a lot of options, and that's changing, as you may know. You kind of have to work with what your chapter members want to see in terms of communication. You obviously have the website, but you also have newsletters. LA likes a paper newsletter. A lot of other people have newsletters that are only published online. Some will send them out by an email. There's different ways of doing it. But you need to cover minimum things like announcement of upcoming events. You want to talk about what's planning is going on and what so that they see that this is an active chapter. Things are going on. Things are happening. It's a dynamic thing. You want to be a part of that. Now, another thing that a lot of people don't understand, but this ambassador, because there's other ambassadors at the country level, we also have called it ambassador promoters. The idea is that you identify somebody in local universities or companies that will support your chapter. They're going to tell people whatever works there. It might be a bulletin board that they can put things up on, or talk about it at a system engineering council meeting, or whatever the company has to be able to do that. But you should get feedback from those ambassadors, what they're doing and how it's working, so you can improve that. We also have a orientation for them. It's on the wiki, so if they don't know what it's about, they can go there, get a walkthrough of what the expectations are and how they can get the most out of the job. Then for some chapters, social media is going to be a big deal. They want to see it either on LinkedIn account or Twitter or Facebook. So be aware. You might want to set it up so that you can text people when activities are coming up, or text them, go check your email or check the website so that they have a reminder of things that are coming up, or a note on Facebook. You want to grow the membership. We have this goal of wanting to double our membership. A lot of that's going to be through the chapters. So you want to recruit, you want to have a recruiting package. A lot of chapters have trifolds. There's examples of those on the wiki. We've got retention renewal activities. You want to follow up with people. A lot of chapters send reminders as their renewal date's coming up, saying, hey, your renewal date's coming up, don't forget to renew. And then when they miss it, you send them reminders saying, hey, you missed it, be sure and renew, because you don't want to miss all the good activities and information that's going on. The survey of chapter members we mentioned earlier, but this is a great way of finding out what the interests are to make sure that your program is on target for what your members would really like to see. Don't forget to take advantage of not only the CAB. A lot of times the most active CAB is like at their home office, but like Lockheed, for instance, or Raytheon or Boeing have offices all over the nation. And you want to tap into that CAB local office and establish a relationship there so you can not only leverage what they have to offer, but they may be able to help you with resources of sponsoring meetings or sponsoring the chapter, that kind of thing. Make sure that your new members are introduced to the chapter. You've got ways you can do that with your newsletter or Facebook, website, whatever. And then a lot of chapters are setting up your student divisions. And that's something that if you have questions about that, you really want to check with Dave Mason. He's really active and has a lot of helps for making that occur. Then for technical aspects, we don't, in the awards, we no longer give credit for papers, but we think that's a really important thing. It's just not a chapter thing, it's an individual thing. But encourage your people, new members, old members, people that you hear talk about work they did at their work. If they can get clearance from their company, maybe they'd like to produce a paper on that and get it published in Insight or in the journal. You have non-INCOSE papers. You've got technical products we talked about earlier. You've got technical groups, both local and international, that your members can be a part of. So there's a lot of ways that your members can grow and develop technically through the chapter if you provide those opportunities. Make that easy for them. They'll show up, you'll grow your chapter. Okay, we've changed outreach to be outreach and collaboration now. And the idea is work with other societies like IEEE or PMI or whatever. Some areas have local engineering clubs or councils where they share ideas, maybe share meetings, invite people to different meetings that might be of mutual interest. Apply your system engineering. Hey, you might be able to apply it in your local city, or it might be a nonprofit organization, it might be in schools, lots of different places. It might be applying system engineering at a local shelter. There's just lots of places where system engineering can be applied and create new interest, and people see that, hey, there's more to system engineering. Schools, through the Engineering Week, the cities program, there's lots of things that you can get involved there. Presentations about INCOSE to companies that are not currently have members, or particularly as you want to broaden it beyond the aerospace area. This is a way to get into some of the smaller companies that maybe don't have people called system engineers, but they are doing system engineering. And this is the way the vision document that you have as part of your package is a great selling tool to go into those companies and to help sell. Another way is to provide unpaid speakers to career university. There might be management groups that meet. Lots of ways that you can get the word out about INCOSE and about system engineering. Now, the chapter support to INCOSE is really important. It's a two-way street. You're a chapter, but by working with other chapters, you're supporting You can provide speakers to other chapters to help them, particularly startup chapters. One thing, I was talking to someone who wanted to start a chapter, but they were kind of worried. Hey, you hear about those? Offer to align, get them to align meetings so that they can tie in through through Global Meet, and they don't have to worry about programs for a while as they're getting started up. They can just tag onto your programs and yet have their local meetings. One of the things we mentioned in the planning workbook when you work through that is to plan for your attendance at IS and IW. Don't just say, can you come? Set a target. We ought to have 5 people, or at least the officers, or whatever, and plan for that so that they can begin working early with their management to see if they can get at least partial support, or if not, they can, start having bake sales in the neighborhood to collect money so they can pay for it. You also may want to have individuals or the chapter donate money to the INCOSE Foundation to help that. Chapter Awards Committee. The idea here is that people like past presidents, they can support the big INCOSE by serving as part of the evaluation like Eric does. He serves on the committee and helps evaluate the submittals for each year's award. So that kind of thing is a valuable service.
You don't get to evaluate your own chapter.
No, we'll talk about that later, right? Solid chapter operations obviously are really important. You have chapter elections that ought to be planned, ought to be done early in the year. Some chapters have a different cycle, but it ought to be regular and in advance of what you consider your calendar or your chapter year to be. You want to be recruiting your candidates early. You want to get the bios so that people know who they're voting on. You want to mail the ballots out early. And then you want to have regular leadership team meetings. This is really important, at least quarterly, but a lot of chapters find it useful to have at least a telephone meeting monthly. Now, there's been questions about this display banner. The old days we had canvas banners, and that's fine. But what's more useful is to have an electronic banner where you make a PowerPoint loop. It talks about upcoming events, who your current officers are, pictures from events that you've had. Talk about one of the events I didn't mention earlier, but if you have tours, like the LA chapter was talking about having a tour of SpaceX. We've had people in our chapter or associated chapter had a tour to a big train installation, which is very system-centric of how they control trains throughout the U.S. One to a motorcycle manufacturer. There's lots of things, and those can be family events. Get pictures from that, put the pictures in your banner so that it creates interest, shows that you're a multi-dimensional chapter. You want to have your chapter events. We really would like to see them at least 3 months in advance. What's bad is when they're 3 months in arrears. It really helps to know what they are before they occur and to get them promoted. Active membership, obviously, and this is why you want to build your leadership team, because like we had a big hit a couple of times when either a chapter president or president-elect got a job across the country and left. Well, if you want to make sure you've got your pipeline full and you can bridge those kind of things easily. And one of the things that really helps is that public recognition for people, not only internally to your chapter, but hey, if somebody does a good job, your officers and others, send a notice to their boss so that there's good visibility of what they're doing and they're getting credit for it back at their company as well. Might also thank their wives for all the time they put in. Okay. So there's, I think I did that one, yeah, okay. Now we're going to talk about the chapter awards, and the idea here is that we've changed it a little bit this year, in that we've taken out things that are individual efforts, like being a working group chair. We've taken, and some people are not happy with this, but the reason we took it out, and Dave Long supported this, is that this is a chapter award, and we have individual awards and recognitions we can do for the individual efforts. But we want to encourage chapter efforts. So another example is that rather than giving credit for all the SEPs that you got, we now give credit for promotion of certified engineers, but not actually for how many you have. We want to encourage you to promote it within your chapter, have training, those kinds of things to try to get more. So as part of that, all these things we just talked about are all collected, and we really encourage you to submit that stuff during the year because you ought to be looking at it anyway. That's the way you manage your chapters, to look at those kinds of information. You're looking at it, as long as you're looking at it, you might as well upload it to the website and get a credit for it, and you don't have to worry about it in December or January. So this is, all we're trying to do is make your job easier by using what you should be doing anyway, the things you use at work all the time, and incorporate those best practices into your chapter activities. This is the award levels. We also even have an honorable mention. If you submit and don't even make 2,500 points, you still get an honorable mention. So can't lose. Okay, the submittal spreadsheet. We've had a little problems this year because I don't seem to be able to find all the errors when I update it, but I think I've got it all right now. But the spreadsheet is kind of the way you go about keeping track of things. But if you use it as metrics, and a lot of chapters find this is very useful, use it as a metric throughout the year. Planning section has due dates to help you. We have descriptions. We've clarified some of we're always clarifying the criteria based upon feedback we get or misunderstandings. The documentation is, we've tried to detail that so you know exactly what to do. Each section's total points is limited, so you can't exceed the maximum. And then there's credit allowed for international symposium. Didn't used to do that, but the chapter, if it's done locally, we may revise this later, but the last few, like in Philadelphia, those guys, that was the last year's, they did a lot to try to support that event. And so doing so meant that they couldn't do quite as much for their chapter events. So we give them credit, allow them to take credit for that activity. Then the other thing is the Gold Award has minimum for all the sections. And this is to make sure that your Gold Award members have a broad spectrum and not just really good in one area, but they are a broad spectrum program. These are the minimum report. It's kind of like a balanced scorecard. These are the minimum points for gold. Then we give it, this may be a bad thing, but we let you go as late as we can do it. Tony Giglio runs the chapter evaluations. That's done between the cutoff date and IW. They're all evaluated in that time period, and then any questions are resolved at the international workshop. So we have to have them in by the first Sunday in January, which will be January 4th for 2015. But we really encourage and appreciate if you can get them in much earlier than that. No reason not to be able to do it in December.
Please remember to self-assess yourself.
Right. Okay.
You tend to get it done and move it down themselves.
And then the other thing is set up, and don't know how to make people do this, but we want you to use the first page, the first tab of the worksheet, of the workbook is a certification tab. And the idea is you list your officers, and a lot of times that helps us to know who to contact because sometimes I'm making phone calls during IW trying to track down if we had a question that we couldn't resolve. And also what we encourage is that, okay, your president-elect is putting all this stuff in, trying to keep it up, he uploads it and all that, but somebody else in the chapter should go through all that, add up all the numbers, check that all the stuff has actually been uploaded into the right folder for your chapter, not someone else's, so you don't miss any credit. And also it gives us higher confidence that what we're looking at is we're going to be able to go straight through, because in the past, this has come about because in the past we would get things that were missing all sorts of things. People would claim credit, but there would be absolutely no evidence that anything was ever done. And that makes our limited window really hectic because each evaluator evaluates 3 different ones. Every chapter is evaluated by 3 different evaluators. So as Eric had mentioned, you can't do your own if you, so they're assigned out that way. We've done everything we can to make it fair and equitable. And we have very, very few protests, but if that happens, you can appeal. Usually when people appeal, they're asking for information that was not available to the committee to now be considered. Hey, we forgot all about this, but hey, we found this under at the back of the file drawer, and we'd like for you to look at it. Okay, there's also special awards that are done based upon a total assessment. One is a President's Award for Outstanding Chapter, and the other is the Director's Award for the Most Improved Chapter. And you have to wait 2 years before you can win that again to make sure that that's passed around and we're getting all the good chapters recognized. Then we also have veteran officers. We've got Wiki where you can post your particular ideas, things that are working or not working. We have email that you can mail any questions or suggestions to. We are really, though, want feedback on what we do, because the objective here is to have efficient and effective chapters. And we'll do anything within reason to help you achieve that. And both for the keys to effective chapters and for the chapter awards, we really do want feedback. We don't get much feedback. We don't know if it's working or not working. I get a few comments at IW and IS. I get about 3 emails a year. So there's feedback would be very helpful to know if we're on the right track or not. We're also considering very brief mini surveys, and so if we do that, we'd appreciate very much if you would respond to that.